Hello lovely people, December has arrived, which means that it's time to do my non-fiction November wrap-up.
Doobie 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 doo doobie 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 Sophie vlogs.
So, I set myself 4 books to read over the month of November, and I have read 2.5 of them, but I have also read some other non-fiction books as well. So, I'm going to start off with the books that I read for the prompts, and then I'm going to move on to the books that I read just for fun. So, I started off with Flaneuse by Lauren Elkin, which is has the subtitle, Women Walk the City in Paris, New York, Tokyo, Venice and London. This was interesting. It was a little bit different to what I expected. So this is part memoir, so part about Lauren Elkin's own experiences living in the cities of Paris, New York, Tokyo, Venice and London. And then also part sort of looking at historical figures. So we looked at George Sand, Sophie Calle, Martha Gellhorn, Agnes Varda, Virginia Woolf, figures like that. And it was sort of looking at how being in these specific cities and being able to wander the streets of these specific cities influenced them creatively. I thought there was going to be more of a look at general topics like what type of person is able to benefit from having the time and economic ability to wander the streets and stuff like this, but it was less of that and it was more of like individual looks at these individual people and their creative processes, which was really interesting. A lot of these women I didn't know anything about. Some of them I am interested to look into further, so that was really interesting. And Lauren Elkin's own experiences of some of the cities, like Paris was very liberating for her versus Tokyo she initially found very constricting to her and stuff like this. So as someone who enjoys a good memoir and a good looking at women in history, I thoroughly enjoyed this. I should have said Flaneuse was my pick for the Wander Wonder prompts, and my pick for the Micro Macro prompts was A Brief History of Everyone Who Ever Lived, The Stories in Our Genes by Adam Rutherford. This was super duper interesting. I find it harder to retain scientific knowledge, so I find it a lot easier to absorb it through a sort of narrative rather than just here are some facts, memorize some facts. So I don't know how much of this I'm going to be able to recall in even a month from now, but just the experience of reading this was so fascinating. It's sort of split into a couple of different sections. So part 1 is how we came to be. There's a lot of looking at just going way back to Neanderthals and stuff like this and comparing genetic diversity and stuff like that. And then part 2 is who we are now, and we're looking at concepts like the concept of race from a genetic point of view, and then also looking at how illnesses develop. Are you destined to have illnesses from your genes? Is that a thing that occurs or not? And all stuff like this. So this was just entirely new to me, but entirely interesting. Okay, the book which I am still currently reading is Confronting the Classics by Mary Beard, and this sort of slowed me down on my non-fiction reading because I'm having a mixed reaction to it. I'm a little disappointed. I really like Mary Beard as a television presenter. I think she's great. I think she's a superwoman. But, and this is potentially my own fault because I didn't realise that rather than this being a wholly original book, just done for the purposes of writing a good book, it's actually a collection of essays and book reviews and stuff that she wrote for other reasons that were published in various publications and stuff like this. I'm a little fed up of just reading Mary Beard reviewing books that I haven't read. Because I find that she starts off exploring an interesting topic, and then we mostly just get lost in critiquing ex-author's approach to the topic, rather than I would have just liked to have learnt about the topic a bit more, I think. So some essays in this I really enjoyed. Some of them I sort of skimmed a bit because I was I don't really care. There's just a lot of picking at how badly other people have written things, and I'm that's fine, but also I haven't read the original and I don't really care. So this has slowed me down a bit, but I will finish it because there are some interesting nuggets within here. I would have preferred it if it was just a wholly Mary Beard setting out her own arguments rather than picking apart someone else. I have not got round to reading Mastering the Art of French Cooking by Julia Child, but I have read 2 other non-fiction books this month. So I read Lily Allen's autobiography, which at this current moment I can't remember the title of because my friend lent it to me, and if someone offers to lend me a book I will always say yes because I like to expand what I read and stuff like this. Lily Allen is not a figure who I am particularly attached to. You know, there are celebrities that you are I like that person. I'm sort of indifferent to Lily Allen. I will say, as autobiographies go, it was a thoroughly interesting autobiography. I didn't know any of the stuff that she'd gone through in her life. I appreciated that it was quite like upfront and frank, and just was like, here's all my life experiences, here's things I've struggled with, here's blah blah blah. Because I sort of don't like celebrity autobiographies that are a bit wishy-washy and don't really say anything. Like, I didn't really love Mindy Kaling's Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me, because I didn't really feel like I got any understanding of who she was as a human being outside of what I could have just gleaned from media snippets. Whereas at least with the Lily Allen one, I feel like I have at least got a better understanding of who she is as a person and everything like that. And finally, I read What Would Boudicca Do by E. Foley and B. Coates. This was an anniversary present from my lovely, lovely boyfriend who gave it to me because I love Boudicca. The concept of this book is, it's like women from history answer modern life's problems, / how can we draw upon women from history to help with life's modern problems. This is like an entirely lovely, light little read. I would really recommend this as like a Christmas book for someone. Specifically, I think older teenagers / young adults who are like going off to university, figuring out how to function as a vague adult in this world. I think this is a really great book for that, because it's not too heavy on the advice. It's more little potted histories of women, and then like looking at them through a specific lens, like body positivity, or dealing with bullies, or establishing yourself in the workplace. I would say that there wasn't a lot of advice that I could really apply to my own life, just because I feel like it is potentially suited to people who are a little bit younger. But it was a thoroughly, thoroughly enjoyable book, and crucially, it has given me a bunch more cool women from history. So I'm kind of using this as a jumping off point. So like, I enjoyed getting to know a little brief snippet of them, and there are certain figures throughout history who now I'm like, maybe I'll go buy a whole book about them and learn a bit more detail. So this was a thoroughly fun and enjoyable read. That's it for Non-Fiction November. I also read a bunch of fiction this month, which I will post a roundup of soon. I always thoroughly enjoy Non-Fiction November. It's really nice to have an excuse to really like focus in on some books which I've been meaning to read for a while and that sort of thing. I would love to hear if you took part in Non-Fiction November. How did it go for you? Were there any particular highlights? Have you read any of these? Any and all thoughts welcome. Other than that, I hope you have a lovely day, and I will see you next week for something different.